One. Hello, my name is Cameron Sabat, and today, uh, this is Cutting to the Case, and today we are joined by Dr. Matthew Lazzara, senior scientist and research meteorologist at the University of Wisconsin-Madison's Antarctic Meteorological Research and Data Center, where he leads the Antarctic Automatic Weather Station program and Antarctic meteorological research and data efforts. He's been employed to Antarctica 10 times since 1995 and oversees weather observations from some of the most remote and extreme environments on Earth. He's also chair of physical sciences and a professor of weather and climate at Madison Area Technical College and serves as president of the International Commission on Polar Meteorology. His work focuses on Antarctic weather, climate, satellite observations, and automatic weather stations. Thank you so much for joining today. It's an honor.
Oh, thank you. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. And this is really a special a podcast episode because you are one of the foremost people in Antarctic meteorology. And so, I wanted to go all the way back to 1995. You've been deploying to Antarctica ever since then. What was your first trip actually like?
So my very first trip had some interesting aspects to it that are not uncommon, but less happening for most folks. I got the experience of trying to go down to the Antarctic three times before we could actually get the aircraft to get there. The first time it didn't make it because the winds were too strong and we didn't have enough gas on board the aircraft to get there safely. And then there was a couple of other attempts made that had some minor problems that were unexpected, either bad weather, which you don't get to control, or a mechanical problem on the aircraft. So I kind of got that first experience of just the challenge it is to get there. Um, then once there, I got to really get to see what it was like to be in the Antarctic. It is a pretty place without a doubt. It's also a place that can go very quickly, and I got to see some of this from what would seemingly be very benign weather to something that can be quite harsh. And that's in the summertime there, which is when we go. We don't go in winter. And so that gave me that sense of the real challenges we have to operate in this environment. And the people. It was really exciting to work with the folks who go. They're a really great group, and it's been lots of fun and lots of really rewarding effort to be with such a community.
Yes, yes. And I've been interviewing a number of Antarctic explorers as well, and they've all brought it back to community. They've all said that that's really the thing that brings it through. That's really beautiful. And I wanted to also kind of touch on, you know, the most extreme weather. Can you maybe walk us through what it's like going through the most extreme weather you've personally experienced in Antarctica?
So depends on what you call for extreme. Is it temperature? And I did do that once. I got the chance to do a day visit to South Pole Station. Turned out to be more than a day because the weather was bad back at the U.S. main station, which is McMurdo Station. So I had to stay overnight at South Pole, and it was early in the summer season, so it was still quite cold. So to experience temperatures in the minus 80 range for wind chills and the temperatures be in the minus 60s. It was really great to have all that cold weather gear on that you need to wear to stay warm. And so that was impressive. But I've also experienced other extremes in person. One that I think is interesting when I was down at South Pole. We got the chance to go out when the temperatures warmed up the next day, and it was a clear sky, no clouds, but you could see this glitter. Literally looked like someone took a fistful of glitter and just had it, floating down. Diamond dust precipitation. And it's a clear sky precipitation where water vapor gas can convert right to an ice crystal and fall. And I was like, wow, that's another interesting extreme that most people might not get the chance to experience in lots of places on the planet. Um, so there's a couple of ranges. I don't go out. We don't do work on our weather stations when the weather is really poor. So I'm never really getting the chance to be out there in like hurricane force two winds, things that are in the 120-mile-an-hour range, that kind of thing. We know our weather stations succumb to that. They suffer that. We watch the observations come in, especially in the winter when we're not out there doing that work. And so those are some of the kinds of extremes that we seem to get here.
Wow, wow. Thank you so much for sharing. And diamond dust is certainly a fascinating description of it as well. It makes me really, I mean, you sell this well. So um I wanted to know also, you've watched Antarctica for 3 decades. What changes have you personally seen?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's something that, when I go to visit physically on the surface, it may not seem like much, but when you spend a moment to look through actual observational data, we are noticing that change. It's not ubiquitous and even everywhere across the continent, but we are seeing places where we're noticing, the temperatures have been creeping up, and it's something you notice over that multi-decadal time frame. Some places hadn't seen a lot of change. Those first 20 years I was working on things, we were like, well, it's not quite definitive. And then in the last 10, we've noticed that that change has occurred. Temperatures, for example, increasing. We're still trying to get a good handle on how much we're seeing change in other aspects. Are we seeing more storms? We're starting to learn more about the way that they operate in the Antarctic. And so once you've got that kind of understood, then you can get a sense of how that changes over time. Um, but yes, those are a couple of the aspects that I think we definitely notice.
Wow. And now I am also thinking about the automatic weather station. So you obviously lead this initiative. And what happens when an automatic weather station breaks hundreds of miles from the nearest base?
That is correct. It's a problem. And so, yeah, we just can't go out and fix it. It's not like, well, we'll go fix it this weekend or next week. It's not an option. We have to plan for that in our future, field season work, which we do send a team down. We've been going down now every year for the last 46 years, except for the first year of the pandemic. We didn't deploy. And otherwise, we then try to triage that work. What is not operating? What do we have a logistic to get there? You need to have the right ability to get to that site. And then we try to do as many of those as we can that the weather and other factors allow. And isn't it interesting? The weather itself prevents us from getting out there to fix the stations.
I can't imagine that. That is just horrifying if that breaks. I mean, that it's
Right.
almost as tricky as a Mars rover. I mean, it is literally in the middle of nowhere. So
Absolutely right. We have that challenge. And yes, we have the luxury, unlike a Mars rover, to send someone out there, but it's going to be weeks or months before that can happen. Sometimes years. We've had a few thoughts that we can't get to for some years. And then we do get that chance, and we're excited when we can to get these kinds of things back up and running. Absolutely.
yes, 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 certainly. And when you think of, I guess, in the context of human performance, because really our podcast is aimed toward generally, health related things. When you work in extreme cold and isolation in 24-hour daylight or darkness, what happens to human performance when people do that?
Oh yeah, it can definitely degrade it for sure. There's a lot of the things that you standardly think of, right? Like, gosh, it must be so cold you can get frostbite. Yes, absolutely. It's something that we as a team, when we're working together, try to check in on each other as we're doing our work. You know, a lot of our field work, not all of it, but a lot of it is 2 to 4 hours on the ground at that weather station site, doing the work to repair it or service it or install it or raise it up because they kind of get buried in the snow. And so we're digging snow and that sort of thing. So we check on each other. And in fact, I've had that experience where someone was doing a quick check on me and they said, "Hey, GMAT, your cheeks are getting a little white." And I had the beginnings of frost nip, which is the beginning signs of frostbite. And so, like, okay, we need to get you into something warm for a few, get warmed up so that it doesn't progress and become a problem, right? So that's an important element there. There are other phenomena that you just try to be proactive about. Some that might also seem logical. It's a snow filled environment. So you can have a lot of white around you on the ground in addition to a very bright, especially we go out on nicer days, so there's less clouds, a lot of sunshine. Um, we got to wear sunglasses. Snow blindness is an issue, and you want to be prepared for that. And if you did have um, snow or reduced visibilities due to fog and all that, that additional white, so we make sure we wear, a proper sunglass that UVA and B protecting and something that allows you to try to prevent having a snow blindness kind of thing happen to you. Another, as I noted, we're surrounded in all that white, all that incoming sunshine. I need to wear sunscreen. Most people don't think of bringing sunscreen to a winter situation, but you really do. And sunburn can occur in places you don't think of, like the underside of your nose or the underside of your ears underneath here, because you get that reflection off the snow. So these are the kinds of things we spend some time being preventative as much as we can, as well as being aware of consciously as we do our work out there.
Wow, wow. And could you maybe speak to also not just human performance in extreme conditions, but also how human health might be impacted by climate change? I mean, being the head of Polar
Mm.
Meteorology must give you some fascinating insights here.
Yeah, perhaps, when we have the environment that we as humans are very used to evolve and change, we're not necessarily adapted to that. And so it makes and I have to admit, I've not studied the extremities of like, okay, as the planet changes, if you have a different climate regime that you start to have your area get into, whether it's warmer temperatures or more cloudiness or more rain or whatever it is that's changing, because climate change does come with lots of different facets. It's not everyone's just all warming up. It's all this other stuff that can really play out a role in how, culturally or how we as humans operate. Um, I can give you the other extreme, for the polar regions, being in that cold environment. We work quite a bit. It's a 6-day work week for us. We take advantage of that time because it's so limited. We only can work in that summer season. And so it's not hard to have, the mental thinking capacity not be all it could be, over a long period of time, or it's very easy to become very fatigued. And so that's another thing we spend a lot of time checking up on folks and, okay, did you install that right? Is it not upside down?
Yeah.
Things that you would think would be logical and second nature and shouldn't be an issue when you're working on it here in the mid latitudes. We might need to spend a moment and think about that. I even carry around with me a pad of paper to take notes while I'm in the field because I'll
Wow.
forget. I'll not remember. Oh yeah, I want to make note of this stuff, and then I can go
Sure.
back afterwards. And after I've had that rest that you really need to rejuvenate, then I can go. Okay, great. I've glad I took these notes because I would have never remembered these numbers or this piece of information about our weather station while we were fixing it. So you get that, and that sometimes can be frustrating because you're not used to having that happen. Perhaps on a lovely day, because we're here in Madison, Wisconsin today. It's a pretty nice day out there in the 80s, and it's not like my weather stations at the moment that are reporting in the minus 60s as we speak here on this podcast. It's like wow, that we get used to that real good comfort, and then when you get outside that space it stresses you, and then your ability to perform can be real challenging. So that's what we definitely experience, and we've seen a little bit of it firsthand in the team. We have to be thoughtful about that.
Yes. Yes. And when you think about also, I guess when you're working on instruments, if you could take one instrument right now and put it anywhere in Antarctica tomorrow, where would you put it and what would you want to discover?
No, well,
I know there are a million that you want, but
there probably are. We often, because the weather station network is very sparse. It's I get teased by my colleagues. We put together a map of all nations' automatic weather stations. We're really excited. It's one of the things I love about the Antarctic is the collaboration we have, not only nationally but internationally. Everyone is really collaborative, and so they've been kind in sharing with me their weather station locations, and then I share the map with everyone and say, "Here you go. Here's the map of everyone's stations." It looks like a lot on a map because the triangles and circles and the labels are big. When you compare it to the same spaces here in like North America, for example. United States, continental United States and Mexico would fit inside Antarctica. The number of automatic weather stations we have here would color the map in. There'd be no room for the labels. All the dots and the circles and the squares would fill it up. Here there's lots and lots of space. So we're missing the chance to capture observations in some places that nobody's there. As it is, that's what we do. Our motto of our team is we're observing the weather where people aren't. And so it'd be really great, to capture, that faster wind speed that I think happens in a few places, but I don't have enough pieces of equipment to try out the spots it might happen, for example, right? That could be really cool. And so
Yes.
that for me, because I mean, it is fun to measure extreme, like for example, the fastest wind. Could we break the world record? I don't know. I know that we've had some breakings of that record recently. I've been a member, of course, for years, right? For decades. It was at Mount Washington in New Hampshire. I'm a member of the observatory there. It's been lovely to see that place have such a record for so long. But could we capture that in parts of the Antarctic? I don't know. And that would be fun. So that's the kind of thing that I think about. Like, yeah, that would be really neat.
Wow, wow. And yeah, thank you for sharing. And everyone wants something specific, I'm sure. So
Right.
there's so many. Um, you know, I am thinking too, for a student fascinated by Antarctica, what is the realistic path to actually getting sent there? And after 10 deployments, what keeps bringing you back?
Oh, so to get the opportunity to go, there are a few options. One is indeed, can you be a student in this field and get trained so that you can be a part of a research team? There are a few of us around in the U.S. who get the chance to deploy to Antarctica to do this kind of thing. There's some, rather than the educational, be a part of a research group, there are other avenues. Actually being employed to participate in the U.S. Antarctic program, there to have it as his job. Some folks, if you think about it, I need, or all of us who go to Antarctica need all the same things you have here in the mid latitudes there. So yes, we have a fire department. Yes, we have people who can help cook our meals. There are people who can help fix, the airplanes or repair trucks. So we have this diversity of work that's needed there. And so some people get that chance to experience the Antarctic that way. And yes, and it includes everything from, yes, folks who work on waste management to folks who are doing weather forecasting. So you've got think about all the aspects of your daily life. Like what in to support me to be here today? And we never really take stock of that. When you go to such a remote place, you have to for a moment and go, oh, wow, we need all those things to be able to make it function. So that's another option is employment, the chance to actually be working there. There are, of course, other routes. They're a little more pricey. The chance to, do the tourism thing, right? Antarctica is is a bit of a tourism destination, and we're trying to have. I think that community is trying to be very thoughtful about it too, and adhering to, the respect of the continent and being there, and because we are trying very hard to protect that environment. There's an Antarctic treaty that has a conservation element to it, and we're really trying very hard to make it be that way. But otherwise, yeah, there's some folks who get that chance, whether it's the cruise to the Antarctic, or some who have definitely the means to say, okay, I'd like to actually get onto the continent and go climb the tallest mountain there, or ski up to South Pole or whatever. So,
Wow, wow. And what a privilege to be able to go. It's really wonderful. And I'm also, I want to be respectful of your time. If you can, maybe some final words of advice to our audience of early career scientists and researchers and students.
oh yeah, sure. I have to admit, in meteorology, I was very luxurious. I was just talking with a student today about it. They said, gee, what got you interested in meteorology? And I've always been fortunate, like some of my compatriots, not all meteorologists are like this, but a lot of them I meet, we've had this love since we were very little. The challenge I had was knowing what aspect of meteorology to get in. There's so many aspects, right? If you think about it, there's tornadoes and there's hurricanes and, there's TV weather forecasting. I didn't know that this would be the thing until I had the opportunity to get into touch, get that experience with a group that was doing it. And I had only was doing it for a one-time opportunity, and it became something like, wow, I really love this.
Wow.
So
Wow.
when you have someone, whatever field you're interested in, get that chance to have an experience. And sometimes experiences you might do, you go, okay, I'm thrilled to have the experience, but I won't pursue that for a career. That's okay. So it's great to have, whether it be that internship or that volunteer opportunity or a chance to be in an environment for a little while to see, give you the chance to kind of, kick the tires on it and get that experience of like what that's like. Um, so
Yeah.
definitely don't shy away from those opportunities. I think that's one thing I would advise. Um, and then having that ability to have different skill sets to go along with the science. I didn't
Yes.
think about it very much until I actually got into this role, how important writing is. I was never a big
Wow.
fan of writing growing up, and I do a lot of it. And so then I was really glad because for some folks you'd think, oh gosh, science, technical writing. I actually needed a creative writing angle to get me more interested in digging into it. And then it was rather valuable for me because then I
Wow.
fell more in love with it and enjoyed it more, despite the fact that, yes, there's absolutely all kinds of technical elements, like any other science discipline. So
Wow.
getting that chance to marry up something like that or any other bit, some people have other skills. I have folks in my team, they're so good at programming, fantastic. They're marrying their science with their programming. I think that's lovely. So
That's
those
so
are some
wonderful.
great options.
It's really about marrying your interests with your career. And thank you
Yeah,
so much. I appreciate it.
you're
I
very
really
welcome.
appreciate this. And I'm sure our audience does as well. And thank you so much. It's been an honor.
You're welcome.
So this has been Cameron Sabat from Cutting to the Case, and I'm signing off.